Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going to be exploring Living Your Strengths by Albert L. Winsman.
Okay.
And get this, it suggests we ditch the whole fix your weaknesses thing.
Interesting.
What if, focusing on what we're already good at is the real key to success?
Yeah, that's pretty radical.
It kind of makes you rethink all those self-help books, right?
It really does challenge the traditional approach, doesn't it? Winsman argues that striving for well-roundedness can actually
Oh, wow.
often lead to mediocrity.
Really?
Yeah. Instead, he suggests that true excellence comes from doubling down on what you do naturally well.
So instead of spreading ourselves thin, trying to be good at everything, we should focus on turning our natural talents into true strengths.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see how that would be more effective, but how do we even figure out what those talents are?
Well, that's where the idea of inherent talents comes in.
Okay.
These are the ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving that come naturally to you. Winsman points to the Gallup Strengths Finder assessment as a tool to pinpoint these.
Okay.
It's not just a personality quiz.
Right.
It's designed to identify your top talents from 34 themes,
Wow.
giving you a detailed roadmap of your strongest areas.
That's way more specific than just saying, oh, I'm a people person.
Right.
This is like, here are the specific ways you excel when interacting with others.
Exactly.
I would love to have that kind of insight.
Yeah.
But let's say we've taken the assessment and we've got our list of top talents.
Okay.
What then? What do we do with that information?
Well, knowing your talents is a great start, but it's only the first step.
Okay.
Winsman stresses that we need to actively acknowledge and apply these talents.
So it's not enough to just know it. We have to actually use it.
Right.
I could see how that could be a challenge, especially if we've spent years focusing on our shortcomings.
Absolutely.
This is where people get tripped up.
It requires a real shift in mindset. Winsman shares a compelling story in the book about Jane, a corporate executive whose top strength was empathy.
Now, you wouldn't typically associate empathy with cutthroat corporate environments, right?
You would think a top executive would need to be more assertive, maybe, or focused on strategy above all else.
Right.
Exactly. But Jane, instead of trying to fit into that stereotypical mold, she decided to embrace her empathetic nature.
Okay.
She focused on building strong relationships with her team, truly understanding their needs and motivations.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
It goes against everything we're told about succeeding in the corporate world.
it does.
Did it actually work?
The results were impressive.
Wow.
By focusing on her strength of empathy,
Okay.
Jane created a more cohesive and productive team.
Huh.
Morale went up, and so did their performance.
Wow.
It's a great example of how our strengths can become invaluable assets in unexpected ways.
That story really highlights how we can sometimes underestimate the power of our natural talents. We might even try to suppress them because they don't fit the mold.
Right.
But what about other talents?
Yeah.
Ones that seem more obviously suited to certain roles.
Winsman also talks about Mark, whose top strength was strategic thinking.
Yeah.
He worked in a fast-paced industry where rapid decision-making was crucial. Now strategic thinking seems like a natural fit for that kind of environment, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I can see how that would be a huge advantage in a rapidly changing field.
And it was.
Okay.
By embracing his strategic talent, Mark was able to anticipate industry shifts and position his team for success.
Wow.
It became a crucial asset, not just for him personally,
Right.
but for the entire organization.
These stories are really inspiring.
Yeah.
They show how leveraging our strengths can lead to some pretty remarkable outcomes.
They do.
But how does this concept play out in other areas of life beyond just the workplace?
Right.
Does Winsman go into specifics about that?
He does. He dedicates entire chapters to exploring how strengths can impact our relationships and even our spiritual lives.
Wow. Okay, now that's what I call a deep dive.
Yeah.
This is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's explore these different areas,
Sure.
starting with the workplace.
Okay.
How does focusing on strengths change the game professionally?
Well, one of the key takeaways is that aligning your work with your strengths leads to greater job satisfaction.
Okay.
Instead of forcing yourself into a role that drains you,
Right.
it's about finding a position where your talents can truly flourish.
Mm.
Imagine waking up every day excited to go to work because it allows you to use your natural gifts.
That sounds ideal,
It does.
but it also sounds a bit utopian.
Yeah.
Is it really possible for everyone to find a job that perfectly aligns with their strengths?
It's certainly a goal worth striving for.
Okay.
And it might not always be about finding the perfect job,
Right.
but rather about finding ways to leverage your strengths within your current role. It's about recognizing how your talents can contribute to your team's success and finding opportunities to shine.
That's a good point. We might not always have complete control over our job titles,
Yeah,
but we can often control how we approach our work.
exactly.
So even if we're not in our dream job yet, we can still find ways to utilize our strengths and make a positive impact. This reminds me of something else. Winsman talks about the impact of strengths on teamwork.
Right.
What does he say about that?
Well, think about it. If everyone in a team understands and appreciates each other's strengths,
Okay.
wouldn't that create a much more cohesive and effective working environment?
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on weaknesses and trying to fit everyone into the same mold,
Right.
imagine a team where each person is celebrated for their unique contributions.
It would be like a dream team. Each person bringing their A game to the table and supporting each other's strengths.
Exactly.
I can only imagine how much more productive and enjoyable work would be in that kind of environment.
It would be amazing.
Does he give any real-world examples of companies that have successfully implemented this approach?
She does.
Oh, really?
There's a great example of a sales team that underwent a strengths-based intervention.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on fixing everyone's weaknesses,
Right.
they shifted their focus to recognizing and utilizing each team member's unique talents.
Wow.
The results.
Wow.
A significant boost in both performance and team morale.
That's amazing. It really highlights the power of this approach, even in a high-pressure environment like sales.
It does.
It's not just about individual success. It's about creating a culture of appreciation and collaboration where everyone can thrive.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've seen how strengths can impact our professional lives.
Mhm.
But what about our personal relationships?
Okay.
How can we apply this concept to our interactions with family and friends?
It's all about understanding and appreciating the strengths of those around you, just like in the workplace.
Okay.
It's about shifting away from focusing on what people lack
Right.
and instead recognizing what they do well.
So instead of getting frustrated when your partner forgets to take out the trash for the 100th time,
Exactly.
you might choose to appreciate their incredible sense of humor and ability to make you laugh even when you're feeling stressed.
Right.
Exactly. It's about appreciating those inherent talents and how they enrich your life. This shift in perspective can lead to more respect, admiration, and ultimately stronger relationships.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a recipe for a lot less conflict and a lot more harmony.
It is.
Imagine applying this to family dynamics or friendships.
Right.
Instead of constantly pointing out each other's flaws, we're celebrating each other's unique gifts.
Exactly.
It could completely change the dynamic.
It could.
But wait, there's more, right? Doesn't Winsman also talk about the connection between strengths and spirituality?
That's right. Okay.
He proposes that strengths aren't just for our secular lives.
Okay.
They can actually be powerful tools for spiritual growth and service.
Now, this is where it gets really intriguing.
I have to admit, I'm curious to hear how he connects these seemingly different realms.
Okay.
How does he bridge the gap between personal strengths and faith?
Well, he suggests that our talents aren't merely random attributes. He sees them as gifts bestowed upon us for a greater purpose.
Okay.
Recognizing them as such allows us to find a deeper connection with our faith and derive greater fulfillment from it.
So it's about aligning our talents with a sense of purpose beyond ourselves.
Right.
It's like using our strengths in service of something bigger. Does he give any specific examples of how people have actually done this?
He does. He shares the story of Susan, whose top strength was inclusiveness.
Okay.
She used this talent to create a welcoming environment in her church community,
Okay.
making newcomers feel instantly accepted and part of something special. This led to a more vibrant and connected congregation.
It's beautiful how something as simple as feeling included can have such a profound impact on a community.
It really is.
Her strength wasn't about leading a huge initiative. It was about creating an environment where everyone felt welcome. Are there any other examples like this in the book?
Absolutely. Winsman also tells the story of James, whose strength was communication.
Oh,
He became a captivating speaker, sharing his faith and inspiring others with his words.
oh wow.
It shows how each of us can use our unique gifts to enrich both our own spiritual lives and the lives of those around us.
These stories are fantastic reminders that living our strengths isn't just about personal gain. It's about making a positive impact on the world, whether it's in our workplaces, our relationships, or our communities. But with all this talk about strengths, is there ever a point where focusing on them too much could backfire? Could there be any downsides to this approach?
That's a great question, and it's an important one to consider. While Winsman focuses on the positive aspects of a strengths-based approach,
All right.
it's important to acknowledge that balance is key in anything we do.
Oh.
For example, if we become too fixated on our strengths, we might neglect areas where we genuinely need to improve.
It makes sense. If we're constantly told to focus on what we're good at, we might start to avoid anything that challenges us or exposes our weaknesses.
Yeah, that's a good point.
How do we avoid falling into that trap?
It's about recognizing that personal growth involves acknowledging our limitations and pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones.
Okay.
There's a difference between accepting our weaknesses and letting them hold us back.
Right.
Sometimes we need to put in the effort to improve in areas where we struggle, even if it's not our natural strength.
So it's not about becoming complacent or thinking, well, this is just who I am, take it or leave it.
Right.
There's always room for growth, even within our strengths.
Yeah.
It's about constantly striving to be better versions of ourselves.
Absolutely.
What other potential downsides should we be aware of?
Another potential pitfall is becoming too rigid in how we view our strengths.
Okay.
We might start to see them as fixed and unchanging, which could limit our growth and adaptability.
Okay.
Life is constantly changing, and so are we. What was once a strength might evolve over time, or we might discover entirely new talents that we didn't know we had.
It's like we're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Right? Our strengths aren't static, they're dynamic.
Yeah.
It's about staying open to new possibilities and recognizing that growth is a lifelong journey.
Exactly.
It's not about reaching a destination, it's about constantly exploring and becoming more of who we are meant to be.
I like that.
But sometimes,
Yeah.
despite all our efforts to live our strengths, we might find ourselves in environments where they're not valued or appreciated.
Right.
It can be disheartening when we feel like our talents are being overlooked or even dismissed.
Absolutely.
That's a tough reality to face. It
Yeah.
can be so discouraging when you put yourself out there and your efforts aren't acknowledged.
We care.
What advice would you give to someone in that situation?
Well, it's a reminder that we can't control everything. We
Mhm.
can't force others to see our strengths or appreciate our contributions.
Right.
But what we can control is how we respond to those situations. We can choose to stay true to ourselves even when it's difficult.
So it's about having the courage to walk away from situations that don't serve us, to seek out environments where our strengths can truly shine.
Absolutely. And sometimes walking away from a situation that isn't aligned with our strengths can be the strongest move we can make.
Wow.
It could mean finding a new job, leaving a toxic relationship, or even creating our own opportunities where our strengths are not just tolerated, but celebrated.
It's about taking ownership of our journey and crafting a life that reflects our authentic selves.
Yeah.
It's inspiring to think that we have that power within us,
Yeah.
but it's also a lot of responsibility, right? How do we even begin to make such big changes?
It starts with a shift in mindset. It's about believing in ourselves and the unique gifts we have to offer. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing that our strengths aren't just about what we do,
Right.
they're about who we are at our core. And from that foundation of self-belief, we can start taking action.
I love that. So it's not just about changing our external circumstances, it's about changing our internal narratives. It's about believing in our own worth and potential.
Exactly.
But even with that belief, taking action can be daunting,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking about making major life changes. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling stuck or overwhelmed?
One practical step is to start small.
Okay.
Break down those big goals into smaller, more manageable actions. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight,
Right.
focus on making one small change today that aligns with your strengths.
So it's about building momentum. It's about proving to ourselves that we can make positive changes one step at a time. It's about building confidence and resilience through consistent action.
Exactly.
But we don't have to do it alone, right? Winsman talks about the importance of community in this process.
Absolutely. Surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, who see your strengths, and encourage you to shine is crucial. And it's equally important to be that person for others.
Okay.
Share your strengths, lift each other up, and create a world where everyone feels empowered to embrace their unique gifts.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together. We all have something special to offer, and we can achieve so much more when we support each other. This deep dive has been such a profound reminder of the power of our strengths. It's not just about achieving success, it's about living a life that's aligned with our authentic selves.
And remember, the journey of living your strengths is an ongoing adventure. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks. But as long as we keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep believing in ourselves, we can achieve anything we set our minds to.
I feel incredibly inspired by this conversation. It's like a whole new world has opened up, a world where we can all embrace our unique gifts and make a positive impact. But before we get carried away with all this inspiration, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on this. As we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive, what's the one message you want our listener to walk away with?
Well, for me, it feels like we've been on such a journey with this book. It's not just about understanding our strengths.
Great.
It's about embracing them, applying them, and really making them like the driving force in our lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, for someone just starting to explore this idea,
Okay.
what's one key takeaway they should keep in mind?
For me, I think it all boils down to this. We often get so caught up in self-improvement
Right.
that we forget about self-acceptance. What if the most powerful change we can make is simply to embrace who we are, strengths and all?
That's such a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It flips the script on the whole idea of self-help.
It does.
It's not about constantly striving to be better.
Right.
It's about recognizing the value of who we already are.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean we become complacent or ignore areas for growth.
Right.
It's about starting from a place of acceptance and then building from there.
This reminds me of something we talked about earlier, the difference between talents and strengths.
Yeah.
Can you remind us what that distinction is and why it matters?
Of course. So talents are those inherent ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving that come naturally to us. They're like raw materials.
Okay.
Strengths, on the other hand, are developed talents.
What happens when we take those raw materials and hone them, refine them, and put them into action?
So it's not enough to just know our talents. We have to actively cultivate them, put them to use, and allow them to grow.
Right.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You might have a natural talent for playing the piano,
Okay.
but that talent won't reach its full potential unless you practice, learn new techniques, and challenge yourself to grow.
Right.
It's the same with our strengths.
Right.
We need to nurture them, challenge them, and allow them to evolve over time.
That's such a great analogy.
Eh?
And it highlights the fact that this journey of living our strengths is an ongoing process. It's not a destination we arrive at.
Right.
It's a path we continue to walk.
Exactly. And it's a path that's much more enjoyable when we have support along the way. Surrounding ourselves with people who believe in us, who see our strengths and encourage us to use them can make all the difference.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the power of community.
It's not just about celebrating our own strengths. It's about celebrating the strengths of those around us.
Imagine a world where everyone feels empowered to embrace their unique gifts and contribute their best selves. It's a world where collaboration trumps competition and where individual strengths come together to create something truly remarkable.
It's a beautiful vision, isn't it?
It is.
And it starts with each of us.
Right.
It starts with recognizing our own strengths,
Mm-hmm.
cultivating them, and then using them to make a positive impact on the world.
And for anyone who's feeling inspired to embark on this journey,
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out Albert L. Winsman's book, Living Your Strengths. It's filled with insights, stories, and practical advice that can help you unlock your potential and create a life that truly reflects your strengths.
This deep dive has been such a rewarding experience.
Yes.
And I hope our listener feels the same way.
Me too.
It's been a reminder that we all have something special to offer.
And that by embracing our strengths, we can not only achieve success, but also live more fulfilling and meaningful lives.
Absolutely. So go out there, dear listener, and embrace your strengths. The world is waiting to see what you're capable of. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining brightly.